Welcome to Saxon's Algebra 1 3rd edition. This is lesson 74, and this lesson is on scientific notation. Now, scientific notation can be confusing sometimes. A lot of people do get confused with it, so I've tried to find as many visuals as I can to help you out. Why do we even need scientific notations? Because sometimes there are numbers, especially in science, that are so very large that it's easier to write them in scientific notation than it is to write out all those zeros. Alright, so I found this first, and this is something that you can refer back to. I'm going to give you some things for your notes. So, step 1 is move the decimal to make a number between 1 and 10. Alright, so in this case, we would have to put it between the 2 and the 4. Count how many places the decimal point moved. Now remember, if you don't see a decimal point, you assume that it's right here at the end, because that's a whole number. Alright, so in this case it moved 5 spaces. So we can write this number in scientific notation without the zeros to be 2.4 times 10 to the 5th power. 5th, because that means there were 5 places that I moved it. Multiplying by 10, if I moved it 5 places, it's 10 to the 5th. Alright, now, changing very small numbers, that's numbers that were not a whole number, that the decimal was on the left side, and you have to move it to the right side. You still need to put it between the first two numbers that would be between 1 and 10, but in that case it's going to be a negative. See here, we moved it 6 places, but it's going to be a negative 6 instead of a positive 6. Alright, and then to go back to standard form, if I have 5.3 times 10 to the 7th, obviously that just means I need to move that decimal point to the right 7 places and add as many zeros as necessary. And the opposite of that would be, if I needed to take a decimal number, I would just move the decimal to the left that many places. So, the number is a decimal less than 1. The exponent will be negative. So we'll move the decimal point to the right, remove any zeros that we don't need, and place the power of 10. We moved it 3 places in this particular instance, and we moved it to the right, so that is a negative 3. And another one here, we had to move the decimal point 10 places to get it to a number between 1 and 10, and so we would say that is 1 times 10 to the negative 10th. When we move it to the left, this was a whole number. It was not a decimal number to start with. So we're moving it left to make it kind of smaller, and that would be a positive exponent, positive 10. Alright, so we're going to do some problems to practice scientific notation. Don't be afraid of it. You will get the hang of it, so don't worry about it. Our first example says to write this number here in scientific notation. So we move this decimal 1, 2, 3, 4 places, and it was a decimal, so we're moving to the right, so that it would be a negative. So we have 3, that should not be 3, that should be 3.16. Let me fix that for you. It would be 3.16 times 10 to the negative 4th. Alright, now here we have the same number, but it says 10 to the 7th. Alright, well, we're still going to move it. We still had 3.16 times 10 to the negative 4th, just like we had up here, but we're multiplying that times 10 to the positive 7. So Here, we just say times 10 to the 7th, and then we, remember, add our exponents. So when we add 7 and negative 4, we get 3.16, that does not change, times 10 to the third power. Okay, 47,800, and it's going to be written 3 different ways here. We're going to change this to scientific notation. So let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. So we would put 4.78 times 10 to the, we know it's going to be fourth. We moved it left, so it's positive 4. Here we have 47,800 times 10 to the negative 7. Well, we still had to move it 4.78, which would be 10 to the fourth, and then we're going to say times 10 to the negative 7th would make it 4.78 times 10 to the negative third. And then here, times 10 to the 7th, it would be 4.78 times 10 to the fourth times 10 to the 7th would equal 4.78 times 10 to the 11th power. So we have 3 practice problems that are exactly like the ones we just did. Let's put this number into scientific notation first. It would be 1, 2, 3, 4. So that would be 4.99 times 10 to the positive, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 10 to the fourth. All right, in B, we're going to say 4.99 times 10 to the fourth, because that's what it would take to make this a number in scientific notation, and then say times 10 to the negative 11th. So really all we're doing is saying 4.99 times 10 to the, then we add and subtract this negative 11 and positive 4, we would get a negative 7. And then finally, here, we're going to move it right, I'm sorry, so we're going to have a negative exponent, so let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. We need to move it 4 places, so 4.99 times 10 to the negative fourth times 10 to the third would equal 4.99 times 10 to the negative 1. Good job. I'll see you back for tomorrow for lesson 75, which is a rather lengthy lesson. So do well on your scientific notation. I'll see you tomorrow.